Hello, everyone. Today, we are going to touch upon a very common knowledge for a lot of residents in GCC countries, especially in Saudi Arabia, but not sometimes well known to a lot of folks. I know a couple of my friends who got an offer from Middle East. I mean, from Saudi Arabia. They took the offer from India. I mean, they left their jobs, and then they realized that there were few levies and taxes that they are supposed to pay from their own salary away, which took away a huge chunk of their savings potential, of the investment potential. So with this video, I wanted to cover some bare minimum common knowledge. It's not as if like I'm going to share some very top secrets. It's very common knowledge, but sometimes missed out by a lot of folks who are planning to move to the Middle East, especially in Saudi Arabia. Why is GCC attractive? Right? GCC countries for a very long time have been the to go place, especially for the lower and middle class citizens of a lot of Asian countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Indonesia. A lot of people have moved in here for the last couple of decades. Right? Recently, we have also started seeing a huge inflow from European countries, North American countries as well. It's not like they were not here before, but a huge inflow. As per the GStat numbers, the growth in expats from these countries have also been significantly increasing, right? And now with mega giga projects like the Neom, from Red Sea, from Roshan, from the like the Salman Park, the New Murabba, etc. This inflow of expats is only going to increase from. Another reason has been the proximity to your home country. Right? Given Middle East is right in the middle, right, as the name says, right? So it was, even from the location perspective, it did not take you 20 hours to fly from Dubai to India. It's hardly 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours maximum, right? Across the Middle East. So that was one convenience. And secondly, which was the major factor here, was the zero tax law that was applicable in most of these countries, and the great lifestyle and comfort that you could get. If you were to compare this with some of the taxes that some of the EU countries are paying, like below, for the lifestyle and health benefits, of course, the benefits are much more bigger there. You're getting pension, your tuition, your insurance will all be free, of course. But given that it's taken out for you without any choice, it's crazy, right? Even countries like India are only going to increase the tax rates from here, as you could see in the latest budget 2024 as well. And a very, very important chapter that could begin was when Oman, one of the GCC countries, decided to introduce the personal income tax. So how and when did GCC start the tax regime? GCC countries, for a major chunk of the history, have been poor, right? It's only very recently, around 1950s, 60s, when they started identifying oils in the deserts and their landscape, right? And then it became, and then things changed around. Right? They have leveraged this oil revenue, to develop the whole region as such, right? But very recently, they also started realizing that this is not sustainable. As the world is moving towards other sources of energy, this is only going to impact their revenue, right? And that's why they started building all these different visions, like what Saudi Arabia launched, the 2030 vision. UAE has the master urban plan 2040 vision, and also 2020 vision, 2010 vision, 1995 vision. All these visions have led to the development of all these projects, right? Like the Burj Khalifa and so many things, right? The main focus of these were on how do we start diversifying the revenue stream so that we don't just rely on the oil revenue as the major source. How do you start attracting foreign visitors? How do you start attracting foreign investors, right? Specifically for Saudi Arabia, the oil revenue is only 60 percentage. The remaining 40 percentage is coming from other sources of revenue. So what's the next biggest source of revenue? Well, that's the VAT, value added tax. Around 2017, so 16, 17, 18, right? That's when the GCC countries started introducing VAT. It's only Oman and Kuwait which hasn't started this yet. Saudi Saudi Arabia in 2022 increased this VAT from 5 percentage to be 15 percentage, which is like the highest in this whole list. This itself is now the the second biggest revenue source for the kingdom. So what is VAT? Whenever you go to a Lulu or a Zara to buy some groceries, or to buy some clothes, to buy some toys, or to even buy the car, you're paying a value added tax, right? It's always there in your receipt. Right, you'll see this VAT component always being there, right? This applies to almost every consumer durables, non-durables, like AC, fridge, if you're buying a sandwich, if you're having a coffee, everywhere this 15 percentage is applied on top of the payment itself, right? So let's do one exercise, right? Simple exercise on Excel. Let's assume that you belong to one of the following three categories of spenders. Someone who is only spends on essentials, and close to 20% of your salary is only going into these consumer durables or non-durables. Your food, groceries, petrol, car, EMI, I mean car basically the cost, but everything is capped into 20%. Clothes, everything, movies, everything is capped to 20%. That's like super savers, I would say, right? The next category I would call like 30%, which is typically the average that you spend on these on the VAT uh, included items, commodities. And then there could be like those who spend 50%, which I would categorize as the thrift spenders, also as a little bit of luxury, goes into fine dining, I mean dining outside restaurants, a couple of times a month. So 20%, 30%, 50%. I've built this simple Excel, right? So first column is your monthly salary. Let's assume it's 5,000. Then I'll apply the VAT rate, which is 15 percentage, standard 15 percentage. There are some exemptions, but a good 90 percentage is 15 percentage. Then we have the scenario number one, which is the 20, low spenders 20 percentage, average spenders 35 percentage, and then the thrift spenders, which is 50 percentage, right? So, and let's assume that we'll put a bunch of scenarios. For example, let's say that your salary goes for those between 5,000 monthly reals to 30,000. Let's also put like a extremely big guy, right? 50,000 reals, who is earning 50,000 reals per month. Extremely super rich guy. So let's take the scenario, and it's 15 percentage. So if you're spending 20 percentage of your salary on these items, and 15 percentage of that is going into VAT, then net you're essentially giving 3 percentage of your total salary to VAT, right? Which is 15 into 20. Similarly, for the average guys, it's 5.25, which is 35 percentage, 15 percentage of 35 percentage. For the thrift spenders, it's like 15 percentage of the 50 percentage, which is 7.5 percentage, right? So irrespective of your salary, this is like fixed, so I can just copy paste this until the end, right? Because that's like fixed. So 3 percentage, 5.25 percentage, and 7 percentage. So by default, close to, you are paying close to 3 to 7.5 percentage as tax, in a way, value added tax. The next is the dependence levy, which was introduced by Saudi Arabia in 2017. This is the fee you pay on a monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis for all the dependents that you have brought to the kingdom. So let's assume that you have your parents, your dad, your mom, or you have your wife and two kids, right? So and they are not working, right? They are not. So these are your dependents, right? So if let's say it's a family of four, yourself, your partner, your spouse, and two kids, and let's assume that only one of you are working. So basically, you have three dependents, right? In 2017, when this was introduced, you had to pay 100 riyal per month per dependent, right, to the kingdom as part of this, which means that if you had one dependent, you had to pay 1,200 for the 12 months annually, from your salary is going as dependent levy. Or let's say if you had three dependents, this would mean 3,600 riyals was going there. In 2018, this was increased to 200 riyals per month per dependent. In 2019, it became 300 riyals, and in 2020, it became 400 riyals per dependent per month. What this means is, if you're a family of husband, wife, and two kids, and only one of you are working, basically three dependents, you're essentially paying 1,200 riyals per month, close to 14,000 riyals. Even though this is not like a major source of revenue for the kingdom, this has had like a huge impact on the economy. What started happening is that a lot of folks, especially from the lower middle class background, they started moving their family back to the home country because of this huge expense that they had to pay on a monthly basis. Thus, what kingdom was losing is the consumption power of these dependents. Imagine, let's say you're going to a mall or you're going to Boulevard City, Boulevard World with your kids. For sure, they will crave for, oh, I want to go ride this giant wheel. That's 15% VAT. You know, I want to have a ice cream. That's another 15% VAT. All these started reducing significantly. So there are now talks of removing this dependent levy that the Minister of Finance had also announced. There are some. Let's again do this exercise now, right? So again, we have the monthly salary here. Let's assume it's a depend number of dependents is three, but we can also play with this, right? What I've typically seen is like it's a uh, husband, I mean partner one, partner two, and two kids, right? And then 400 is the per month per dependent levy. Total levy therefore will become 1,200, and as a percentage of that 5,000, this is 24 percentage. And you can understand now why a lot of people had to move their family back home, right? This is the major reason for that. Now let's do the same thing. Let's assume that there are it's from 5,000 to 30,000, and let's also consider the extremely who are earning a good amount, right? So what you'll observe is another interesting factor, right? As your salary is increasing, this component is becoming lesser and lesser. So for someone of 5,000, this is 24 percentage, right? But for someone who's earning 50,000 per month, it's hardly 2 percentage, right? So what essentially one of the other reasons was also like, by having this levy, you're essentially attracting more of people who spend more, who can be here. But people who typically might not be spending a lot because they have less income and all, they might, it's okay to leave them. But what essentially happened is not what was forecasted. A good chunk actually left, right? And therefore now there are again these stocks, right? So basically the tax that's going is close to 24 percentage, 20%, depending on your salary, but it's a good chunk, right? Now there are also some other types of levies. For example, there's an expat levy, right? This is what an employer has to pay the kingdom for every expat that they're bringing to the kingdom into their company, right? I mean, this is also to encourage the localization efforts. You're not just hiring, from outside. You're also making sure of the local talent that's available in the kingdom, right? So there's a low expat levy. There is zakat. There is real estate transaction tax. There's a withholding tax. There's a bunch of these taxes. Now there is one more element that you need to consider. The overall cost of living in Saudi is on the rise. Back in 2016, the cost of 1 liter of 91 petrol was 0.45 riyals, 45 halal. Right? Now it is 2.18, 2.33, right? That inflation is much high now. Even for food, the rent has increased significantly, right? So if I were to do the price parity exercise, you're essentially paying a premium to live in the city as well. Okay, so let's use the price parity calculator, right? Let's assume that I am in Riyadh, and what is the worth of 100 riyals of in, let's say, Mumbai? Okay, so what this is calculating is 58 riyals in Mumbai is equal to 100 riyals in Saudi Arabia. So there's a premium that you're paying for the high cost of living in Riyadh or in general in Saudi Arabia, for the high cost, high lifestyle, right? Which is already there. So there's an additional, in a way, that's also an additional tax that you're paying unknowingly for the lifestyle to be surviving in Saudi Arabia itself. Though I'm not going to factor this into the calculation, but this is also something that you have to keep in mind, and this is a huge, this the the increase in the lifestyle cost in Saudi Arabia is huge over the last decade that has happened, especially in the housing, in the on the rent side, right? Okay, so now if I were to combine the effect of both the value added tax and the dependence levy, right, for each of the salary categories that we had, right? So this becomes close to, for the 5,000 person who is earning 5,000 per month, in the low spender category, he or she is, they are paying 27 percentage to up to 31 percentage of their salary. That's huge. And as you increase, of course it's low, but even for the someone who is earning 30,000, they're still paying close to 7 percentage to 11 percentage of that of their revenue as tax. For someone who is earning 50,000 per month, that becomes from 5 to 10 percentage close to, right? So considering the major chunk of the population, which ideally is between 5,000 to 30,000, we are essentially paying somewhere between 7 percentage to 31 percentage of his salary just on this VAT and the dependence levy, not considering, let's say, you're also paying the expat levy, which ideally you should not be. You're also factoring in the inflation and the lifestyle cost that's happening here, the premiumization cost that's in Saudi Arabia versus the other developing countries, right? So that's huge. So there are a few tips which I would like to give before I conclude this. Number one is, try to have multiple sources of income, or at least your partner also having a source of income is only helping you. Okay. Secondly, when you're taking an offer from an employer, try to negotiate the dependence levy so that they can take that burden off your salary. Try to, some of the employers, they also charge this expat levy from your salary, the dependence levy from your salary. So try to negotiate these. A lot of them do cover the expat levies by themselves, but the dependence levy sometimes is on you. So try to negotiate that on your employer so that that is taken off, right? This is all common knowledge. I just wanted to bring this out to you so that it's a bit intuitive, and you start thinking also in this manner so that you're having a lifestyle which is not like a miser, but also not someone like a thrift spender, right? Before I conclude, I have a humble request to all of you. I've been trying to, bring all these new knowledge, things which I myself have been learning for my personal stuff, and I felt like there's not a lot of things of these content, especially for Saudi Arabia context, on YouTube. Or so it would really help me, really motivate me, and make me feel happy if you could share this with your network. If you could like and subscribe to my channel, this would really help me, right, to grow, and also feel motivated to share more of these more consistently as well, right? Thank you so much for the time. Hope you like this video. Hope this gave a good perspective. And see you next time.